So, what if the secret to a really meaningful life wasn't about finding yourself, but about losing yourself completely? I want you to imagine a book written over 600 years ago by someone who didn't even leave their name that makes this exact, pretty radical claim. It's a text that has just captivated thinkers for centuries, and today we're going to unpack its core message. So this is it. It's called The German Theology. It's a short, pretty intense, and totally anonymous work of mystical thought. And the author basically argues that we have completely misunderstood the source of our own suffering. And because of that, we've also misunderstood the path to real freedom and peace. So together, let's explore the provocative ideas found right here within these pages.
All right, so here's where we're headed in this explainer. First, we'll look at the book's mysterious origins. Then we're going to dive right into the problem it identifies, what it calls the prison of the self. After that, we'll explore its solution, the path of surrender, the freedom that it promises, and then finally, we'll ask why this ancient idea might be more relevant today than ever.
You know, this little text has fascinated people for ages. Even the great reformer Martin Luther was a huge fan. He was actually the first person to publish it. And it really doesn't waste any time with small talk. It gets straight to the point. And it poses this central question: what is the single biggest obstacle standing between you and a true, meaningful life?
And the book's answer? Well, it's startlingly direct. It argues that the problem isn't your circumstances, it's not your enemies or the world outside. The problem, according to this 14th century guide, is you. Or to be more specific, it's your self-will, your ego, that constant focus on what I want and what I need.
Wow, the language here is incredibly blunt, right? The author doesn't just say that selfishness is, unhelpful. They equate it directly with what they call the devil, the source of all negativity and disconnection. This I-ness, this constant need to assert our own separate identity and desires, is presented as the fundamental barrier to a life of truth.
So what this really boils down to is a choice between two paths. On one side, you have the false life. And yeah, it feels good, it's easy, it's just following our natural impulses. But the text warns that it ultimately leads to a kind of spiritual blindness. And then on the other side, there's the true life, which is described as bitter and difficult because it goes against every single selfish instinct we have.
Okay, so if our self-will is the prison, then how in the world do we escape? Well, the book offers a solution that's just as radical as its diagnosis. It's not about trying harder or being a better person or reading more books. Instead, it calls for a total act of surrender.
And the author is crystal clear on this. You cannot think your way to enlightenment. You could read every spiritual book ever written, listen to every teacher, but as long as the self is still calling the shots, you're missing the entire point. According to this text, the only way forward is to actively give up the self.
This quote from the Gospels, this is really the cornerstone of the entire text. For the author, this isn't just a nice suggestion, it is the whole path. It's presented as the one key that unlocks the prison door. To deny the self isn't a one-time thing, but a complete reorientation of your entire life. So, how does this actually work? Well, the text lays out a kind of spiritual process. First, you have to admit that your own ego is blind and just can't be trusted. Second, you stop wanting things just for yourself. Third, you learn to endure whatever comes your way without fighting it. And finally, you become a simple instrument for a will that's greater than your own. It's a journey from self-assertion to complete and total surrender. Now, I know what you're thinking. This might sound incredibly grim, right? Like you're just erasing yourself. But the book argues the exact opposite. The outcome of this total surrender isn't loss. It's the discovery of a profound and unshakable freedom, a peace that has absolutely nothing to do with what's happening around you.
There's actually a beautiful German word for this state, Gelassenheit. It kind of means a yieldedness or a releasement. It's the peace that comes when you stop fighting, when you finally let go of that frantic need to control your own life and just allow yourself to be guided by a deeper current. The goal, as the text describes it, is a state of spiritual poverty. Now, this isn't about having no money, it's about having no ego. It's a radical kind of humility, a deep, honest recognition that the isolated self is actually pretty limited and powerless. And according to the text, this is the very place where true strength, that connection to something larger, can finally be found.
And this is the final destination. When the self becomes nothing, a higher power can become all. In the language of the text, God isn't some old man in the sky, but the ultimate reality itself,
The line between the individual will and this divine will just dissolves. The person becomes a perfect expression of this higher will, and in that union, they find a perfect and lasting peace. So, I get it. This all sounds very, well, medieval. So why should we care about any of this today? Well, as it turns out, the message of the German theology stands in stark, almost shocking contrast to our modern world. I mean, just think about it for a second. Everything in our culture tells us to do the exact opposite of what this book advises. We're told to build our personal brand, optimize our routines, chase our dreams, and always be the main character of our own story. In our world, the self isn't a prison to escape from, it's a project to be perfected.
And so this brings us to our final, timeless question. The 600-year-old text challenges our most basic assumptions about what it even means to live a good life. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, our relentless focus on self-improvement is actually a detour from real fulfillment. It asks us to consider a radical alternative. In a world obsessed with self-promotion, what might we discover? What freedom, what peace, what truth could we possibly gain by losing ourselves?